You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith.
How's it going, Sprouts? Today is September 5th, and it's the feast of Saint Mother Teresa, which is very appropriate for today. And our topic is work. So in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 15, God put man in the garden, and he put him there to do two things. One, to till the garden, and to keep it. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the keeping part, but today we're talking about the till it. To till a garden, that's work. That's where you get down the dirt and you make things grow in whatever form or fashion that requires, right? So it might actually be plowing the field, putting holes in the ground for seeds, covering that with dirt, watering those things, right? But that's actual labor. That's actual work. The Catechism of the Catholic Church in paragraph 2428 says that in work, the person exercises and fulfills in part the potential inscribed in his nature. That means that when we work, we are becoming what God created us to be. It's a part of who we are as his creation. But it's also really, really important for you as boys. You see, you're special because you have this chemical in your system called testosterone. And it drives you sometimes to be really aggressive or have energy or run around or do crazy things. And that's all fine and good as long as we're obedient and as long as we direct our desire to do those things toward God. Work is a great way to direct our energy toward God and serve others. So that might mean doing our chores. That can include painting a house, cleaning a toilet, brushing our teeth, sweeping a floor, vacuuming, making beds, washing windows. I could go on, right? I mean, I got a pile of rocks in my backyard that my kids can clean up. But the key to work, just like adventure, is directing it toward God. And this is why Mother Teresa is perfect for today. So, Mother Teresa was born in 1910 to an Albanian family that lived in Skopje, which is now in northern Macedonia. In 1928, she joined the Sisters of Loreto with hopes of becoming a missionary. And eventually she did. She traveled to India, and there she taught in schools. But after spending more and more time in India and experiencing the poverty there, Mother Teresa was convicted to help the poor, to do something for them. So she did. She didn't have any sort of fancy training or millions of dollars or some great organization behind her helping her to help the poor. She just had to go out there and figure it out. So she started just being a missionary to the poor in the streets. And the reason that Mother Teresa is a great example to us today when we talk about work boys is that the missionaries of charity are known for working extremely hard. They're up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, getting ready for the day. Maybe 5 to 6:30, they're doing their morning prayers and mass. Then from 6:30 to maybe 8 o'clock, they're doing a little bit of breakfast or cleanup. And then they're going into work. They're going into work for the poor. At some point, they get a little bit of rest, maybe lunch, then maybe a little spiritual reading and meditation, maybe a little bit of tea, a little bit of afternoon prayer, and then again, they're working for the poor. Their way of life, in many ways, reminds me of a phrase by St. Benedict, ora et labora, prayer and work. And so the missionaries of charity had this really intense life that Mother Teresa helped to deeply influence, right? Because they give themselves to Christ through the poor, right? Through service to the poor. It's a very intense vocation, but it's beautiful. And there's kind of a saying among some sisters that they don't receive very many American vocations, right? Americans don't often become missionaries of charity because Americans don't suffer well. They don't know how to deal with the intensity of so much work very well, because a lot of Americans lead very comfortable lives. We like air conditioning and television and being able to eat food whenever we want to eat it and driving nice cars, things like this, right? We're not used to living in a country where the bathrooms are pretty much a hole in the ground, or there's not running water, or there's not a whole lot of medicine, or the weather's not nice and we just have to put up with it all the time. And yet, as Catholics, as boys, you are called to work, right? It's like we said in the beginning, it's in Genesis. God called you to till the garden, to get out there and work. Now, just to clarify something, boys, I'm not saying that you need to work to make God happy, or you need to work to earn your way to heaven. You can't do that, okay? Heaven isn't something we work for in the way that you clean a bathroom. It's a relationship that you have with God, right? So no matter how many toilets you clean, that's not what's going to get you into heaven. But if you clean those toilets with love, and you clean those toilets with prayer, and you get to know God better by cleaning those toilets, well, yeah, that's going to help you get to heaven, because you're going to know the Lord. You're going to know Jesus, right? There's a funny little story, and again, I can't confirm it, of Mother Teresa when she arrived at one of her convents, and she went to use the bathroom, and she found that the toilets at the convent were really clean. And when she got done, she got out of the bathroom, she flushed the toilet, she came out, she looked at the supervisor that was there and said, "Someone here must really love Jesus because they clean the toilets here so well." And that's what our work should be like, boys, in our lives. We have this intense chemical in our system, right? We are boys. We are unique. And a part of our job in life is to work, and to work hard. Now, as boys, your work is different than the work of a man. But as a boy, you have this period of time in your life to practice being a man. So helping out around the house, right? Doing your job well. When you're asked to wipe off a table, clean that table well. When you make a bed, do it right. Get rid of those wrinkles. And do it without complaint. Put a smile on your face. And remind yourself that you're doing it for Jesus, right? Talk to him in your heart when you're doing that work. That kind of ties into our challenge for today, Sprouts. What I want you to do is I want you to go find an extra chore today. Some extra work. Maybe that is moving a pile of rocks in your mom or dad's backyard. Maybe that is painting a fence or milking a cow. Some of you probably live on farms. Or maybe it's just sweeping the floor, washing a table, making someone else's bed maybe. Do something extra, find it there, and when you do it, tell Jesus that you're doing it for him, out of love for him, and talk to him while you do it.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. One final word to the grown-ups. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. I would like to invite you to join a special Facebook group just for those that listen to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. We will use this group to connect, to share resources around that week's theme, and simply celebrate raising future saints. To find the direct link to the Facebook group, simply check the notes for this podcast episode.